Hey everybody, welcome to the first edition of Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis. We're going to take a journey to some of the most haunted hotels in the country, including this one, which is Concord's Colonial Inn in Concord, Massachusetts. Why is this location haunted? Well, dates back to the 1700s, and it also was a major player during the American Revolution. Right down the street is Northbridge, which is where the first battle, the Battle of Concord and Lexington, took place. This room that I'm in, which is room 24, has some of the most haunted accounts, and the reason why it would be haunted is because it served as a medical triage during the American Revolution. So they would bring the soldiers, both patriots and the British redcoats, into this room and amputate them or work on them in this room. So this was the surgery room during the American Revolution. Joining me tonight is my good friend and co-host from Paranormal Rewind, Joni Mayhan. She has written many books, and she also is in my book, Haunted Hotels of New England, and does an amazing job at kind of giving tips for those who want to spend the night at some of the most haunted hotels in the country. Welcome to the show, Joni Mayhan.
Thank you for having me on the show, and congratulations. This is amazing.
Oh, the first victim, as we like to say, right?
Yeah.
So, Joni, you've actually been at Concord's Colonial Inn, and I'm in the haunted room, room 24. Tell us a little bit about your experience in this haunted room.
Yeah, I know. I recognize everything behind you. I've sat on that bed. There's a chair next to you that I sat in during the investigation. Does it still have a doily on the back of it?
It does not, but apparently that doily flew off and hit you on the head, right?
It did. I try to be, tough as nails paranormal investigator that doesn't freak out and scream like a little schoolgirl. But that's exactly what I did. That thing flew off the back of the chair and landed on my head. And of course, I didn't know what it was. I just knew something touched me in the pitch dark, so I screamed. But it was an interesting night. That was just one thing that happened.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, the energy in this room is pretty overwhelming. In fact, there was what I think was a soldier that was in this room. So people don't know I'm a clairvoyant, so I actually see dead people and communicate with them. But there was like something crawling on the ground, like a black mass crawling on the ground. And you said you've actually connected with a British soldier or with a soldier in this room before, right?
Yes, in fact, we came there as a meetup group back in my very early days, and I was just latching on to my abilities. I'm clairaudient, and I've also become a lot of other things as well. I would say probably clairvoyant, claircognizance, just about all the clairs by now. But at that point, I was just starting to develop my abilities. And we came in as a group. And in our group, we happened to have a very talented psychic medium. And then my friend Sandy McLeod was there and a few other people. And what we always did, since we were all working together to develop our abilities, was we all carried pen and paper. And if we felt something come in, we would write it down. And I think it's a great tool because you've ever been in a group with one clairvoyant or one psychic medium that starts spouting out everything they feel, and then you're kind of ruined for the night because you don't have a clear slate. You're looking for whatever they said. So that way we kept it quiet, and after it ended, we all compared notes. And what we all felt, every one of us, we wrote it down, was that we all felt a man come out of, I believe it was out of the bathroom. It was that area over there.
Yeah, the bathroom.
Yeah. And the bathroom seemed to be a very heavy place.
Yeah, it is.
Like a doorway. And he came all the way to the front of the fireplace, and he was wounded. He was a soldier. I don't think he was British. I think he was American. He had dirty blonde hair, and he had a head wound. And I didn't get any communication with him, but I definitely saw that very clear mind picture, as did everybody else in the room.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if he was British or Patriot. I've asked him, but and he didn't really respond. I just think he's a wounded soldier with a lot of pain still in the afterlife. And it's almost like he's crawling up to me, looking for help, which is kind of like like, do I help him now, or what should we do with this spirit? But part of me feels like maybe it's residual as well. And for people that don't know what a residual haunting is, can you let everybody know what a residual is?
Well, it's where energy has just absorbed into a location and replays like a record stock on loop. So if he came through that doorway at one point, he's going to keep coming through it, and he won't communicate with you, which I really don't remember him communicating with us. I mean, he could be residual, but um, uh, something so strong makes me think that he's not. Maybe he's caught in his death state. Maybe he's trapped mentally in his mind of the moment right before he died. That could be another theory.
So for people that don't know, so I've written a book called Ghosts of the American Revolution, which is coming out in July, right around July 4th. So I spent a lot of time at this hotel. So the backstory is pretty amazing. So this served as a triage during the American Revolution, specifically the Battle of Concord and Lexington, which is right down the street at Northbridge. That's where it took place in April of 1775. So someone, Joni, that has written about like this type of energy, like wars and American Revolution specifically, why would this location be haunted?
Well, I just think so much tragic activities happened there. It was just such a heightened emotional state that they ended up stuck there. And I think, we've both investigated and written about crime scenes, and it's almost the same thing. It was a quick death. And for all intents and purposes, it was a murder. He was murdered by the other side, and he came here hoping for relief and didn't find it. So, there's a lot of panic. I felt that in him. He was very distraught and was looking for something. So I don't know that anybody can help him. I think they need to break him out of whatever loop he's in to be able to do it.
As someone who kind of is also sensitive as I am, what would you recommend? So if I wanted to help him, say tonight, what would I do, or what would you recommend doing to help him kind of break out of that loop?
I would just talk to him, try to communicate with him, try to break through and tell him you're his friend, you're here to help him, and let him know that you can see him, and try to help him cross over if you can. I don't know that you can get to him, and I'm not sure what would help him get to that point. I think it might be something that might take time. You would have to come back and keep talking to him and gain his trust, almost like taming a wild animal.
And that's kind of that's been my approach. So I've been here pretty much like every other week for several months especially during the COVID lockdown. And what's really great about this location, there's not a lot of people here. Their COVID regulations are amazing. So I feel safe here, and I also feel like that there's unfinished business when it comes to the spirit. So I have encountered this spirit of the soldier for probably about 6 months now, and our relationship has gotten stronger and stronger. But also by connecting with him, I can feel his pain as well, and that's something, as as an empath, we pick up. Not only do we pick up the good stuff, but we pick up the bad stuff too.
Right, right. Oh yeah, you feel his emotion, and I remember that. I remember feeling it when he came in. He's very strong. And he has a lot of anguish. So I really do hope that you're able to help him.
And also, like so there's the American Revolution backstory to Concord's Colonial Inn, but there's also other things as well. So Henry David Thoreau, he lived here for a while he was studying at Harvard, because his aunties actually owned this inn, and it was called the Thoreau House. So there's not only is there the soldiers and the Dr. Minot, who was the doctor here, but then you have Henry David Thoreau possibly haunting this location as well, which is on the other side of the inn, not this portion, which is the older portion, which dates back to the 1700s.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we really did not have any encounters with anybody other than him in that room. But as we roamed around, we had booked several rooms in the hotel, and that was one of them. But once the restaurant closed down, they let us investigate the restaurant and the kitchen, and we were up in the attic, which was a really incredible hot spot. It was full of some old furniture and old cast off things, and they let us up there. It was really kind of neat, but we kept That's the one thing I love about investigating is we often get full access to locations where we wouldn't normally be able to go. Um, so we were all over that building, and I just remember the kitchen was pretty active as well. The dining room, I think they often see something in the dining room, and the gift shop. The gift shop was another hot spot. So the whole building basically has activity.
Yeah, I'm friendly with the front desk manager, and he has signings downstairs. He works right at the front desk, which is by the gift shop. And so right across the hall, there was a woman that he spots over and over again, sort of wearing old school garb. And we both think that perhaps either she's a nurse or it's a woman possibly tied to Henry David Thoreau, maybe one of his aunts that lived there. But she's kind of judgmental. She kind of looks at you when you walk in to the room.
Okay. I just heard something that sounded like a cry. I don't know if you'll be able to catch that on the audio later, but as you were talking, it was like a cry.
Yeah, there was I heard it too, Joni. So it was like well, first of all, it was an audible EVP.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of freaky. We are definitely in a very haunted location here, and possibly things will pop up along the way.
I'll let you know if anything starts sneaking up behind you. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do think that we are not alone tonight. On our premiere edition of Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis, I just actually saw a light, like glimmer over here. All right, so this is kind of getting very active. It's like turning into poltergeist.
Yeah, you've got something going on over again by the window. Is there some kind of vent on the wall? Like something keeps moving in front of it, behind you, to the side.
Yeah, so there are windows here, and then I have the shutters closed, so there's not any chance for light anomalies coming through. There's a heater here too because it's kind of cold outside. But yeah,
seeing a distortion right above. It just happened again. It's almost like something's trying to manifest right in front of. Is that a heater or whatever that black thing is? Yes, that.
Yeah, so that is a heater, and
yeah, something keeps trying to manifest in front of that. It's actually pretty cool watching it from my aspect.
Yeah, and of course, like they perform on demand while we're doing the first podcast for haunted hotels. But with that said, I mean, like when it comes to like hotels in general, you're my go-to person, Joni, and I think that like you are really aware of like what people should do when they stay at a haunted hotel. I'm pretty well versed. I kind of know how to put up my shield of protection and grounding. But you actually gave a list of pointers for people that do travel and stay at very haunted hotels.
Yeah, I think be prepared. Decide ahead of time if that's exactly what you want. Because for me, I don't want to sleep in a haunted room. When I sleep, I want to feel like I can actually sleep and nobody's going to be messing with me. Other people are completely fine with it. So be prepared and know ahead of time what it is you want, and then whatever paranormal protection resonates with you. Make sure that you're utilizing it. Some people will use prayer. Some people will call on their guides, or they use protection stones, or they'll throw up a shield around themselves, or they'll do all those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever you do that makes you feel comfortable, do that. And then also, yeah, there you go. You got your selenite.
Harmonizers, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And also, I would let your intentions be known. They can hear you. They're aware of you. Just tell them, look, I'm going to sleep now, and I really don't want you messing with me. If you want to communicate with me, now's your chance. But as soon as I turn the light off, I'd like to be left alone. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at least it's a good effort to put forth.
It's funny. I've actually stayed at multiple rooms at Concord's Colonial Inn, and this is the most haunted room. This is the one that everyone requests if they want to stay in the haunted room. But I'll tell you, I've actually had more activity in the other rooms throughout the inn than I have in this room. I mean, of course, yes, there is a soldier wanting my attention, but the soldier has actually visited me just in this room. He's been in other rooms as well.
Yeah, and I think there's probably ghosts in every room, or maybe ghosts that can go to any room. So, by limiting yourself with room 24, you're only getting perhaps that one ghost. If you go to another room, you might encounter somebody who's actually willing to communicate with you a little bit clearer.
So, Joni, this podcast is going to be at various hotels throughout the country. And the goal is to not only get the history of the location, but also to talk about the ghost lore. When it comes to haunted hotels, I'm sure you stayed at plenty yourself, but what hotel would you uh, recommend as far as visiting, or maybe not recommend based on the fact that it's very haunted?
The one that comes to mind is the Shanley, which is in upstate New York, and I think have you been there?
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah, I've stayed there probably 3 or 4 times and tried out different rooms, and I think it's incredible space, very active. It used to be an old bordello at one point, or part of it did, and there's a room that where the madam would stay in the main room, and there are little rooms branching off of it where the prostitutes would stay. And I went up there one time with Sandy, and we slept in that room, and I think there were actually a couple people in the group, and I slept where the madam slept, and they all slept in the prostitutes' bunks. And we kept having weird activity all night long. At one point, a phone flew off the bedside table halfway across the room, and I remember people screaming out in the middle of the night because something touched them. So it was very active, and that was just the one room. So that's another great location.
The big topic on everyone's lips now is the Hotel Cecil in California, Los Angeles. And I know that you have experience. You were working on a documentary on Elisa Lam, and you were able to visit Hotel Cecil, but not necessarily able to go inside, but you actually felt the energy outside of the Hotel Cecil.
Yeah, they brought me there to film me seeing what I felt, and I felt it from like 3 blocks away. As we were walking up, you could feel it was almost like a big black storm cloud hung over that building. And the closer you got, the stronger it got, and the stronger it got. It was just very heavy, very foreboding, very strong, and very negative. And so by the time we got up to the hotel, I was shaking. It was just overwhelming, this sense of evil coming off of that. And I kept getting the sense that it wasn't just one, it wasn't just two, it was like thousands of them. And I don't know if it was demonic or if it was just negative, high advanced, nasty ghosts, or maybe it was all of the above. But that place is just infested with negative entities.
No, why would it be infested with negative entities? And we know that there were multiple mysterious deaths that happened at the Hotel Cecil. We know that Elisa Lam mysteriously died. It may have possibly have been murdered, or we're not sure what really happened with her. And then you also have two serial killers that stayed at the Hotel Cecil. Would that leave a psychic imprint or an aura disaster at that hotel?
Oh, definitely. But I think that the evil there was there long before any of that happened, before the Cecil was even built. And you have to also take into account Skid Row's like just a block away. And that's a huge homeless area. And just the depression and the mental health issues and just the devastation that those people go through. People have been living there 20, 30 years. So it's a bad area, but I feel like it's something to do with the land. Almost, I don't know, I hate to throw out the word cursed, but something really bad happened there long before there was a Hotel Cecil. And then they built that hotel there, and I feel like attracts like. So it pulled in all the dark energy, and including Richard Ramirez and the Australian serial killer, and caused a lot of murders and just some really horrific things.
So, as someone who is sensitive like you and myself, I'm assuming staying the overnight at that hotel when it does reopen is probably not a good idea.
Probably not, but honestly, Sam, if you and I were offered to go there and spend the night, I would have a really hard time turning it down. I would deal with whatever I dealt with, and have plenty of paranormal protection in place before I did. I think, as paranormal researchers and authors, we often put ourselves in the line of fire in dangerous situations so that we can experience it and be able to write about it. and share it with others. And so that's part of our job and part of what we do.
Yeah, that's sort of the central theme to my book, Ghost Writers, which you are a major player in that book, along with people like Edgar Allan Poe and Edith Wharton and H.P. Lovecraft. But I do think that the underlying theme with us as modern day ghost writers is that to get the story, we actually have to put ourselves in danger. But sometimes the danger can get very dangerous, like for example, I worked the overnight at multiple hotels, and I had a lot of experiences working the overnight shift, not just for people like guesting at the hotel, but as someone who worked the front desk, I experienced things over and over again, specifically in Salem, Massachusetts. And like when you do your research, Joni, like do you like what's is it important to immerse yourself at the location, or are you able to pick up on it without spending weeks and weeks or months at a location?
Well, it's twofold. What was that? Did you hear that? I just heard another shout. Oh, that was weird.
I didn't hear it, but I'm assuming if you did, then it's probably coming through.
Coming from your room. Um, my answer to your question is, do I do research, and what kind of research do I do? It's twofold. Sometimes I want to know everything that happened there so that I can direct the questions. And other times I don't want to know. If I'm going in as a psychic medium and I'm going to try to interpret what I feel, I don't want to know anything. But if I'm bringing in a group of people and I'm the leader of this pack, then yes, I'm going to know everything that I can know. That way I can help. If they start picking up on things, I'll be able to say, oh yeah, that's so and so, and what else are you feeling, and kind of get more information from. I teach a lot of students, so a lot of times when we go, I'm helping somebody develop their abilities. So it just depends on where we're going and what we're doing.
So one of the biggest tips I would recommend, so I have my selenite harmonizers with me, and I do like a grounding exercise where I imagine sort of a white light coming from above, going to the top of my head, and then sort of like coming down all the way down to my shoulders, down to my waist, all the way down to my feet, and then I imagine roots going into the ground. So grounding is extremely important. Jenny, when you go into a location, do you ground before you walk in, or when do you ground?
I ground daily, and for me, the easiest place to ground is in the shower, which is kind of funny, but because you feel the water coming in on your head, and you can imagine it pushing out all the negative energy and all the white light. And there's a white light, in my bathroom above my head, so it's not that hard. And then after I do that, I build a bubble, a shield of protection around myself. Now that I'm clear. And water is also my element. I'm a Pisces, and I've always resonated with water. So being in the shower makes it more powerful for me. And Barbara Williams, one of my mentors, always taught me to time my shield. She said, if you don't time it, like as in say out loud how long you expect it to last, then it will only last on its own for several hours. So I will always say I time this shield for 24 hours, and then when I shower again the next day, I will do it again. But if I'm going somewhere where I know it's haunted and I'm a little bit worried that something might, I will reinforce my shield. Like I'll visualize it, and I'll put metal coating around it. I think you use crystal, and I make it spin, and I have mirrors on it, and I have a full visualization. So when I'm going out, I'm almost like a knight in shining armor. I'm protected. I've got titanium, baby.
Yeah, your shield has a lot of bling to it.
Yes.
But I do a crystal shield. So the reason why I do a crystal shield is because I started off doing the white lighted protection, and then that just would block everything out. So what I do now is a crystal shield, so it allows the good energy to come through and then to keep the bad stuff out. So I kind of imagine like a pebble, like a little crystal in my hand, and I breathe in the air through my nose, out my mouth, and then I start pushing out like a bubble with a crystal around me. And then I do some chanting. I do Ura Shokrio, Ura Shokrio, Ura Shokrio, which means rise crystal shield. And then I do Reiki, which is Shokare, 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 Sahiki, 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 protection, 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 Zoltar, 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 and then send it out to the world. That kind of creates a crystal shield for me. And I like the idea of timing it, though, Joni. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever resonates with you. There's so many different ways to do everything that we do. And I still get impressions when I'm shielded. So it's not, even though I might be ironclad, and I'm never ironclad. Obviously, I'm a ghost magnet. So, things still get through my shield and follow me. But, with that said, that's not for everybody's situation. Most people can shield and they're completely fine and don't bring something home.
So speaking of bringing something home, I accidentally brought something home recently that was pretty bad. I would say like a mid-level nasty entity. It had long fingernails and kind of looked like I would say like a elemental nature energy. So I would say something like really ancient and not good, kind of like a swamp monster kind of thing. So about a week ago, I felt my bed shake kind of dramatically, and then I was sound asleep, and then I was kind of having nightmares. And I guess I was connecting with this entity that, in a case that I was working with prior, that that involved a negative entity that I banished earlier. So long story short, the entity was attacking me. I heard what sounded like a male voice say, wake up, and I woke up, and then my bed was shaking violently. So I was under attack from this negative entity. And then when I talked to you, what happened when I said, Joni, I think I may have an attachment or being attacked by an entity?
Well, it jumped from you to me. And people are always astounded when I tell them that, because they're like, you didn't actually see Sam. And it's like, you don't have to, because we have energy cords that connect us with other people and other places. And I've had them pop in from locations that I've never been to before because somebody I know is there. It's like a highway they can follow. And since you and I are connected, and we have met many times in person, we have an energy cord between us. And so whatever was attached to you kind of looked at you like a spider web and looked out at all your contacts. And then when you were contacting me, it drew their attention to me. And they went, ooh, I kind of like her. Something about my energy is irresistible to the other side. I've been told it's like rocket fuel. So I wish it was only like rocket fuel to me, but apparently I give away more than I retain. But so I ended up pulling in quite a few different entities, and yours came through to me. It was funny because when you messaged me that you had something, I was watching a movie and I was almost to the end, and I was like at that point where you're going to find out who did it, and I wanted to find out, and I felt something pop in, but I was like, just stay back and leave me alone. I want to watch this. I mean, most people would freak out like, oh my God, there's a ghost in my house, and you and I are like, yeah, it's a Monday.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just another ghost. And but by the time the movie ended, then I tuned into it and I went, ooh, this is not a good one. And I was trying to just ignore it for a little while, and it just would not leave me alone. It was like glued to me. So I thought, okay, I didn't really want to burn sage and get all my fire smoke detectors going in my house. So I thought, I'm going to try something different this time and see if it works. And I had a protection candle that I lit, and it was made by a friend of mine and put a lot of intent into it. And so I walked around my house and I filled the rooms with light. And while I was doing this, I was saying the St. Michael's prayer, and I was throwing black salt in all the corners, and and I felt really powerful at that moment. I felt like I was really doing something, and it did help to a certain extent. It kept it off of me for a little while. But then I sat down at my computer, and I could still feel it. And I think I said something, probably spewed some profanity at it to just go away and leave me alone. And then I felt a stab in my side, like somebody had taken an ice pick and stabbed it into my side. And it was, it wasn't just a normal muscle spasm or anything like that, because then I got another one on the other side of my body in my neck. And then, if that's not enough, it felt like something reached in through my skin and squeezed my heart, like I could feel my heart squeeze, which was really terrifying. And that's the point when I contacted Michael Robichaud and messaged him and said, "Hey, can you just send your guides to help me?" And he didn't. He didn't that night. He did the next day. And I did ask him. I don't think I've even told you this. I asked him if it was a bad one. He said, "Oh yeah," and stubborn. Said it didn't want to go. You know, there were no negotiations, so he had to bind and banish it.
Yeah, it was. When you said that the jabbing, you felt the jabbing, I knew exactly what it was because it's this entity. Because I can see them had like long jabby fingernails,
Oh,
like
fingernails. I didn't even think
yep,
about that.
and like almost like piercing, like they were piercing you, and so people, if people don't know, like you and I kind of go way back in a sense that you helped me when I had an attachment that nearly killed me, and it was featured on the 100th episode of A Haunting. So you actually saved my life when I had probably the worst attachment I've ever had. And so tell people a little bit about your involvement with that case.
Well, it was kind of interesting because I was watching you on social media and we communicate back and forth quite a bit, even if we're not working on a project together. We just check in. But you were posting some really weird things and just very out of character things. And so I reached out to you and asked if you were okay. And at first you said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then you started telling me some of the stuff that was happening. And I just knew because I've had a really bad attachment as well. I've had several of them, but one of them I wrote about, Soul Collector, which is in one of the posters right there behind me. I knew exactly what that felt like. So I convinced you to, I hooked you up with Michael Robichaud. I think I contacted him and told him you were going to be contacting him. So I was kind of the mediator between the two of you, but I knew that this was something that needed some expertise. It was above both of our pay scales to get this thing off of you. And I know from experience that if you let this go, it's just going to get worse and worse until one day somebody else opens your eyes and goes out into the world pretending to be you. You know, it's that serious.
And that's what it felt like. I felt like I wasn't me, and I felt like I know, like looking back on what happened, I was channeling, and I didn't push out the entity, but the entity was a person, but he was a murderer, Richard Crowninshield, and so he was a really nasty person when he was alive, and he was a very nasty person when he was attached to me too. So that like that was very dangerous, and it wasn't a demon. I think people want to say it's a demon. It's a demon. It wasn't, but it was. I would say in some cases was worse because he was a really nasty person.
Yeah, I think people get hung up on demons because they see it so much on the paranormal shows. And a demon really is quiet about what they do because their whole goal is to take you over. And a really nasty high level entity is pretty powerful in their own right, depending on what they've learned. You know, perhaps they were a psychic medium in life, and then in death they were capable of doing the same kind of things they could do in life, and they learn a few tricks. They know how to pull energy so to get stronger, and the longer they're around, the more damage they can do. So I mean, a high level entity is just as terrifying to me as a demon.
Yeah, and to kind of give you some insight, so a lot of these entities that I've had attachments to or been have been exposed to actually originated from haunted locations that are also overnight haunts too. So, for example, like one of the entities that I picked up actually was at the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast in Salem. I worked the overnight shift at a hotel that was not the Hawthorne Hotel that everyone knows about, but it was another hotel that was in a building, and it was like the people that owned the building, they're like, oh, it's not haunted, it's not haunted, but the land was stained with blood. That's a prime location for the Salem witch trials. So like a lot of people, when it comes to hotels, they don't want to be labeled as, say, a haunted hotel. Have you seen that, Joni? Like they say, oh, it's not haunted, it's not haunted, and it's so haunted.
Oh yeah, we have that in my town of New Harmony, Indiana, and they're going to all kick me for saying this out loud. But we have several B&Bs and one inn that have some activity going on. And I get the stories from people that stay there. Often come. I do ghost walks here in my town, and so the people will often stay there, and they'll come to me with all these stories about things that are happening. And I actually wrote a chapter about one of those inns in my book, Haunted New Harmony, and they made me take it out because they didn't want anyone to think of it as a haunted. Actually, it was a restaurant that's connected to the inn, but they didn't want me to write about it because they thought it would scare off people. So, and I think, maybe it would, but I think there's equally as many people that would be drawn to it to be able to experience that. So, as long as it wasn't nasty, negative, like yank you out of bed by your ankles kind of ghosts, then I think you'd be okay. I don't know that anybody except maybe Zach Bagans would like that. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. So a lot of the hotels that I worked at that were haunted, they were like, like ghost scare away business. Like don't go public with it. But then, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship with the spirits.
Yeah, I think if you adopt it as haunted, then that's your format. That's what you're running on. And you're probably not going to get a whole lot of just regular people unless they're just curious. But I think most people are going to be there for the ghosts. And I think that's what's going to happen when they reopen the Cecil. Everybody's going to want certain rooms. And, and then it's going to become that.
Getting back to the Cecil, the part that I found really kind of bizarre, for example, they were going to put a roof deck pool at the same where Lisa Lamb was found in a water tank.
That's just so disrespectful. I mean, to me, she drowned or, that she died in a water tank. For them to do that. I mean, yes, that is the way a lot of hotels are going. They're offering a rooftop pool, and, the area around there doesn't support any land for a pool. So that would be their only opportunity to add a pool. But it just seems so disrespectful to me.
Absolutely. And, I think that places like Concord's Colonial Inn, the owners and the managers here, they're aware that their location is haunted. They don't necessarily publicize it, but they work with people like me and like you who want to investigate or to know more about the hauntings.
Yeah, I think, they could always say, somebody comes, oh, I hear this place is haunted. It was like, do you want the haunted room or the non-haunted room? And, you and I both know that if one room's haunted, they probably all are. But some rooms are more active than others. And, you can give people a choice if they don't want to have an experience. But by labeling it the haunted room, then you kind of make it seem a little bit safer for the other rooms.
Well, what's interesting about this, the haunted room, it's actually the most expensive room at the end. So it's kind of good that it's the haunted room.
Well, they're definitely making more money. One thing we did when we came to that specific room is we were trying to debunk another paranormal show that had been there and investigated. And we did that with them all around New England. We went to locations that they had been to. It was kind of fun for us. And just to see if we could experience the same things. And one of the things was on the show, the door closed on its own behind the investigators. And we debunked that one pretty quickly because the doors are hinged to close automatically on their own.
Oh, really? Yeah. I think that it was actually the door in this room here, right?
Yeah, right there behind you. Yeah, when you open it, it automatically wants to close, right?
I think so. I didn't even look at it with that lens. So thanks for pointing that out. I'll do that later on tonight.
Well, and if the door keeps opening and closing on its own in the middle of the night, you might have a ghost.
And also, so when they that TV show investigated, they were a lot of them. They spent a lot of time downstairs as well. And I would say that the dining room area and the kitchen area is very active. And I also think that the area, like the parlor area, where I saw a woman, that's where multiple sightings of a woman just kind of sitting there looking at people as they come in, almost like judgmental, as like, oh, yes, you're welcome. No, you're not welcome here.
Well, and if they're from a different time period, they're going to look at us as uncivilized for the way that we dress and the way we carry ourselves. I know at a lot of locations we went to where we were dealing with 18th century ghosts, they were absolutely appalled at us walking around in shorts and sleeveless shirts, because to them it looked like women were walking around in their underwear. And so, there's definitely, and that same location, I finally took to the point where I would start wearing long pants and, regular shirts there instead of shorts, because they were so truly offended by my bare legs that I didn't want to, cause any strife.
All right, Joni, so if you had unlimited supplies of money, you can go to any haunted hotel or even the world, what would be your number one room with a boo?
I think I'd want to go to the Stanley in Colorado. I think that's part of the. I want to go to the Myrtles Plantation. Oh, don't get me started, Sam. I've got a big bucket list.
I will tell you, Joni, I've actually stayed at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, and I absolutely loved it. The good thing is my brother lives in Denver, so I was able to visit my brother and his family and then stay one night and in the haunted room where Stephen King was inspired to write The Shining. And I didn't have a lot of experience actually in the hotel, but I will say the property as a whole was very haunted. And also, too, I got elevation sickness. So if you happen to go to the Stanley Hotel, take a lot of oxygen, because I totally I felt faint and I got very ill staying at the Stanley Hotel.
Oh, wow. That's so. Yeah, what's your bucket list? What's your bucket list?
So area? if I could go to any haunted hotel in the country, I've actually been to a lot of them. I really want to stay at the Hotel Cecil. It's been closed for a while. I do want to stay in one of the haunted rooms, specifically in Pigeon Goldie's room. That's the woman that was raped and murdered. And there's something about her story that I connect to, that I would love to, I guess, cross her, or maybe just soothe this woman, because her energy calls to me, and I think she needs help.
That would be wonderful, and I would love to go with you. So you let me know when you're going.
Yeah, the plan is that I think Patty Negri is going to join us. We're going to do a huge cleansing at the Hotel Cecil, and just get our sage and our all our cleansing materials, and probably some bleach too at the Hotel Cecil.
Yeah, probably so. Well, if you need an extra person, you let me know. I'll be there.
And also, Joni, people like you're my co-host on a radio show called Paranormal Rewind, and I want to say thank you again for joining the cast of zaniness. And what we do is we rewind every week our favorite television shows and our the most terrifying cases, and we just talked to legendary John Zaffis. For that show, who would you like to see on Paranormal Rewind?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's quite a few people that I would love to be able to have the chance to talk to. Oh goodness. John was a big one. I would love to. I don't even know. I don't even know who to pick. I'm afraid to even say anybody's name. I think it would be fun to have Stormy Daniels on. We had talked about that. I think I'd like to hear her take on the paranormal. Not necessarily the famous people, but the people that are getting into this and they're seeing it from a different angle and a different light. I think those people are interesting to me. So maybe even somebody that's not famous.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that people that can add a different perspective, because you and I are really immersed into the paranormal community, and I think that we see things that we're in this bubble. And I think that when people come in, like Stormy Daniels, even Rob Lowe had a show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
With his sons. He would be cool to talk to.
I'm there for Rob Lowe.
It's like Rob Lowe, and I'm a huge fan of American Horror Story, and I would love to maybe interview some of the people, because I believe that, because a lot of the underlying theme to American Horror Story is a lot of ghost lore, and I'm assuming that they probably believe in ghosts. So I would love to maybe some of the cast members from American Horror Story.
That would be fun. Yeah. Can you get Lady Gaga?
We're gonna hello, Lady Gaga. Can you please be on Paranormal Rewind?
That'd be awesome, though. It would be great to talk to any of those people. I think that would be fun to see. Also, if they're having any kind of activity on set when they're doing these shows, because that draws in energy.
It really does, and especially the cases that they're dealing with, very dark cases. And I'm assuming like the hotel, they're actually filming in Provincetown right now. And I've written a book on Provincetown, and Provincetown was a major player in my book called Mass Murders. So I'm assuming that they're following some of the cases that I've written about, which is the Lady of the Dunes, which happened in Provincetown, and then also Tony Chop Chop Costa. So I've assumed, I think that possibly those cases, the ghosts are probably going to maybe reaching out to them. I mean, I would love to know if that's the case.
Yeah, and are they being drawn to film at certain locations by the paranormal themselves? So because they pull people in, so are they giving the little whispers in the ear, come film here,
Film in Provincetown.
yeah, right,
You'd be like, film in Indiana.
yeah, right.
Film in New Harmony. So, Joni, I know that you give tours as well. If people want to go on one of your tours, and I'll tell you, a lot of our friends from New England actually have visited you.
Yeah.
So tell us about your tours coming up.
I'm starting my very first tour March 13th, and I'll be doing them pretty much every Saturday from now until the end of October. And we do an hour and a half walk. We walk around outside, and I talk about the haunted locations and the ghost stories. And sometimes we have weird things happen. Like one time we were standing there talking, and my entire group started gasping and pointing behind me. And there was a whole flock of vultures circling us. And we do have vultures in New Harmony, but I've never seen them right there where we were, which was in front of a cemetery, circling us. So that was kind of weird. And, we just have weird things happen sometimes, but we always have a good time. We laugh a lot, and it's dark and spooky, and, it's just all kinds of fun. So my website's hauntednewharmony.com, which is pretty easy to remember.
And for me, like I give tours in Salem. Well, not during COVID, I didn't, but before COVID, and hopefully after COVID. And you've actually gone on my Salem tour, Joni. Do you happen to remember that tour? I know that your group of friends came on my tour, and what do you think of it?
I thought it was amazing. I have always been blown away by how much knowledge you have about Salem and all the people that live there, not just their stories, but you tuned into their personalities and their anguish and their emotions. So it was very much a very personal tour. Felt like I knew those people by the time we ended.
Thanks for saying that. 'Cause and it turns out, like after that, Joni, it turns out that I'm related to the bad guys who accuse them of witchcraft, the Putnam family. So that it makes complete sense now because you have that perspective of me before, and I wonder how I'm like now. Now that I know that I'm related to the bad guys.
Well, I mean, I think we're all related to some bad guys, right?
Right.
And it's not necessarily just because it's in our genes doesn't mean it's in our heart. So I just think they have to, you can maybe explain it to them, or maybe they don't even know that. I mean, how would they know that unless you told them, or maybe they do know that. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I did. There was a period where I made an apology to them, and I do think that the spirits were we had a relationship. So when went on my tour, I felt like I knew a lot of the witch trials victims that I talked about over and over again. In fact, some of them actually came on my tour. Like they would pop up. Like Rebecca Nurse would pop up on my tour, who was one of the witch trials victims, and because I loved her. Like she was a sweet grandmother, and her energy was just so sweet, and she would pop into my tour. But after I started talking about my relationship to the Putnams, I would say our relationship was I would say a little strained, but she did come back eventually and kind of reach out to me while I was giving my tour.
well, that's great. That's great. And I think with any kind of haunted location, the more we go back and the more we empathize with them, it's we gain their trust, and they are able to kind of resonate with us and be able to communicate with us a little bit more. So you develop a relationship. You hearing something?
Yeah, there's like a loud banging coming from the bathroom area, which is where the soldier
Thank, thank
banging
you.
noise. And the whole room is like vibrating right now. But anyway, so I have a lot of work to do tonight, Joni. I'm gonna probably reach out to the soldier and make him happy. I don't know what to do, but I'm gonna maybe burn some sage and just talk to him and have a heart to heart with him.
Yeah, maybe say a prayer with him that might resonate with him. I was trying to think of something that he might want, something that he would find comforting. So, but I don't know what that would be. Tune into him and find out what he wants, and maybe give him that.
I mean, so I'm tuning in now, and so I'm getting that he wants his story told correctly, like which is kind of what I get from the victims of the Salem witch trials. They want their story told correctly, and so he has something like so. There's his story, he's been forgotten by history, sort of, and he wants me to tell his story and possibly put it into my book. And I'm just getting tapped on my back, so which means that's what he wants. So so
Oh,
good.
wow. Yeah, something is trying to manifest behind you. Wow, that's crazy. Near the bedpost, like it pixelated and it got little white dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
And I got touched on my back while I
Yeah,
was so he was letting me know that that's what he wants from me. So calling, like this is from a very one I would say one of the most haunted locations in Massachusetts. That's an overnight haunt. So I'm not surprised, but it is kind of shocking to be talking about haunted hotels and to actually report from one.
yeah, I'm sure that you've been enlightening them as well as everyone else. So maybe they learned a thing or two too. Just don't tell them how to really scare you before you go to bed.
Yeah, so the goal tonight is to do some prayers and possibly just like kind of build a relationship with them. I know that this person's in pain, but hopefully find a way where he can like live with that pain, or well, he's not living because he's not alive, but kind of like not play that loop over and over again, which seems to be happening right behind me.
Yeah, right behind you.
So, Joni, anything else like coming up for you? I know that you just finished a book called "When Ghosts Are Near," and maybe you can let people know like what do you do when a ghost is near?
I hear them clairaudiently, so I hear tones similar to ear ringing, and then once I tune into it, I'm able to get mind pictures and more information. Sometimes words, sometimes just a lot of things will flood to me. It'll be like if she's a painter, she's in her 40s. This has happened in the 1970s, and I'll just start pulling a lot of different information. Um, and everybody's different, and that was why I wrote the book, because some people actually see them with their physical eyes like you do. Some people get sensations on their body, like tap on their shoulder, or they get cold chills, or their skin crawls. There's just so many various different ways, and then it's also full of stories of people. I asked them, how do you know when a ghost is near, and what was your most profound experience? And you have a big section in that book too, so so people can hear about your story as well.
It's really hard to pick the most profound experience because people are like, "What's the scariest thing you've ever encountered?" And I'm like, "Which one?" I mean, there was like so
Yeah,
many,
right.
so many cases, and some of the I for me it's always about my friends getting attacked. Like so, for example, like when the entity went from me to you, that to me is terrifying because I don't like seeing my friends get attacked by by the energies that surround me.
Yeah, and I remember we were chatting back and forth, and it was getting close to my bedtime. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed. And you're like, you're going to bed? I'm like, yeah, this is not my first rodeo. I think there's some protection in sleep. I've never had anything happen. Sometimes they'll get into my dreams a little bit, but I've never had anything happen while I'm asleep. So I feel like if I can dive into sleep, I'm safe. And that's what happened. And I never had any problems that night. When I woke up, it was gone.
And also too, if someone stays at a haunted hotel, do you happen to have a book? Because I know like dark and scary places kind of goes into like your experience at hotels, like sort of like a reference book, because you're really good when it comes to paranormal 101, kind of like guides and tips for people.
Yeah, dark and scary things.
Oh.
And I wrote it. It was based on my class notes from teaching Paranormal 101 for several years. So it goes into everything from chakras to what is a ghost to how to get a ghost out of your house and how to connect with your spirit guides, and just goes on and on. It's like a paranormal encyclopedia. Uh, so yeah, a lot of people have found it very helpful.
Yeah, I found it like because there was a chapter on hotels, and it was just like, like, and you had you had different locations like hotels, hospitals, and then then you also dealt with like just if someone's sensitive like me, like or like if you're clairvoyant, like what the different clairs and what they are. So it was very informational.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, hotels are always difficult for me. When I travel, so I used to travel for business a lot. I was a regional for a pet food chain. And I would go to a hotel, and it didn't matter what room I stayed in. If there was a ghost anywhere on the property, they found me. And, they would loom around me. And as a sensitive, they don't have to necessarily do anything to scare you or to let you know you're there. And this was many years ago, so I hadn't really latched onto my abilities or learned paranormal protection yet. So, it was terrifying for me. And something else that we haven't talked about is I think that a lot of hotels are haunted because I think it's a hot spot for suicides.
Oh, that's a
Uh,
good point.
yeah, my theory is that people that want to end their own life a lot of times will go to a hotel because they don't want their family to find them. They would rather have housekeeping find them. And so my experience with suicides have been, and I've had some very personal experiences with family members that they don't cross over. They stay earthbound because they're so eaten up with guilt. And maybe they've learned from church, that if you, commit suicide, it's a mortal sin. You can't go to heaven. And, my job when I go in is if I determine that I feel like it's a suicide, I will talk to them and I will say, you can go to heaven. God loves you. He forgives you. Go be with your family. And so I have crossed quite a few over. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I know firsthand that's it's suicide central. It really depends on the hotel. I've worked at I would say about 10 hotels throughout the Boston area. Some of them are haunted and some of them aren't. So it really depends on the location. Like I worked at hotels where it was I would say like attracts sort of like the less desirable crowd. So it would be like a lot of drugs, prostitution, that sort of thing, and that had that kind of haunting. There was a lot of suicide, so deaths would happen, and it would not be on the news because we didn't want people to know that someone died, committed suicide, or could have even been like a drug overdose because it's bad for the hotel.
Oh yeah, definitely. People don't want, generally just most people don't want that. I mean, we've already talked about some people that do, but they don't want to know the name of the ghost or the person that died in the room that they're sleeping in. So,
Well,
I,
anyway, Joni, you've been an amazing guest. The first time, my first episode of Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis. Thank you so much for being my guest.
oh, thank you for having me on. I think this is a great show and congratulations.
Thank
How-
you. And now we have to investigate all the haunted hotels throughout New England.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You're going to have a lot of fun, and I wish I was there so I could help you.
And like just so the people, Joni does visit. Your family's still in New England, and
Yeah,
so when she's in town, we generally have a reason to meet up, whether it's a convention or that sort of thing. So Joni and I probably will definitely to get photos for our radio show, right?
absolutely. That was like what 5 years old, so we're so much better looking now.
We've aged very well, I must say. Joni, thank you so much for being my first guest on Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis. I have to say, though, this has been a very spirited conversation.
It always is with us. I think we have a good chemistry and we're able to really carry a conversation because, we both do pretty much the same thing. So we have a lot of things similarities and things that have happened to us.
So the first stop is Concord's Colonial Inn in Massachusetts. We are going to be visiting some of the most haunted hotels throughout the country. Next edition, we're going to be at the Hawthorne Hotel in Salem, Massachusetts. Joni, have you been at the Hawthorne Hotel?
I have been there for marathons, but I've not actually spent the night there.
Oh, guess what, Joni? You and I were together at the Hawthorne Hotel, sharing a table at a Paracon.
Right, that's right, at the attachment swap.
So, guys, Join me every week on Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis, and we'll go to some of the most haunted hotels throughout the country. Reach out to me on social media and recommend a hotel that you would like for me to visit. Have a great night and sleep well, everybody. This is Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis.